welcome to MPL Weekly. I'm your host, Becca Scott, and we have Cedric Phillips and Alias V in the house. Later today, we have Brad Nelson, who's going to be popping in at the desk as we go through this week's Sapphire division in the MPL Weekly, where every week we find out who may or may not be moving on straight to day 2 of Mythic Championship that's upcoming. This time it's Mythic Championship 5. So a pleasure to have you both here.
Thanks for having us. Great to be here too. First time locking in with you guys today, so I'm excited. And we've got some combo decks to look at, don't we?
Yeah.
It's like everyone figured out that, hey, this Kethis combo deck is actually pretty darn spiffy, so.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting week to watch with all those combo decks. Let's quick look at the format of what we're doing here. All right, there are 4 divisions of 8 players. Today we're looking at the Sapphire division. Each week features just one of these where players play other players within their division in a round-robin style tournament, and then we see them play off in a bracket style tournament. The winner of each of those matches gets 2 mythic points. So that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Cedric, you've been here before.
I've been here before. Hopefully I will be here again. We saw already Carlos Ramal move through his division, so he's already one player who's going to get a bye in day number 2 of competition. We got to figure out who the other one's going to be.
Well, let's look at our standings right now after round robin play this week for the Sapphire division. Nass right on top there, and Tian close behind, both with 5-2 records. Then Ken Yukihiro and Brian Brown do in with 4-3 records. Javier Dominguez almost got in, but tiebreakers kept him out of the top 4. And of course, only the top 4 move on to today's bracket-style tournament. But yeah, go on. What do you think about this lineup, and what do you think held back some of these other players?
Well, the interesting thing about the Sapphire standings and the Sapphire breakdown here through those 7 matches of round-robin play was the top 5 players there, Nass, Lishi, Ken, Brian, and then, of course, Javier, who missed out on breakers. They all played Kethis combo. Shahar, John, and Tian did not, and so the problem here, for lack of a better term, is that Kethis combo appears to be so much better than everything else. Now, we're going to find out here in a moment that we have one person in particular who's not playing Kethis combo here over the course of our show, but this is, I think, Alias, far and away the best deck in Core Set 2020 standard.
Oh yeah, it seems like it came out of nowhere. I mean, this deck absolutely dominated in the recent Mythic Championship qualifier weekend. Ivan Flock, Andrei Strasky, and Stanislav Sivka created this deck and absolutely wrecked with it. 2 of them got through to the top 16. Unfortunately, Ivan didn't make it, but it just proves that this deck is a force to be reckoned with, and so late in standard too that this has arrived.
And we're going to move on. Well, Shahar and John, you mentioned they had sort of anti-Kethis decks.
Yep.
So it was all Kethis-centric. And here's our bracket. So Lee and Nass up in the upper finals, and then Yukihiro and Brown doing in the lower finals. And it's just 1 win to get to the grand finals for Lee and Nass, 1 win of a match. So less difficult path for them. For Yukihiro and Brown to win, they're going to have to really prove themselves, play a few more matches to make it to those grand finals. But you were saying Brian Brown doing, we will see later on the Esper Control, or is it Hero?
I mean, it's hero-y, mid-rangey. It's it's what Brian loves to do, right? We saw him and Brad and Kai Bude at the last Mythic Championship when we were all in Vegas, and them really having a nice tournament, a nice weekend with Esper strategies. Brian did play Kethis in the Sapphire kind of round-robin portion of things, and decided to kind of mix things up a little bit with Esper this go-around. When we get to that match, Brad Nelson will actually be here in the booth with us, cheering on his best buddy, and he'll break down kind of why Brian is doing what he's doing. But here's what we know. We know Kethis is everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the Sapphire. It's going to be here today. I suppose, and I hope everyone watching enjoys Kethis mirrors, right?
I think they all do, yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
We certainly hope so.
We like to see
we
when
sure
decks
do.
combo
We got a lot of them in front
Oh
of us.
yeah, we sure do.
Yeah.
There not going to be any quick aggros today.
I am sad there's no vampires, but
I know,
okay.
I do love vampires. All right, well, we do have a head-to-head for Tian and Matt Nass. You can see a little bit about these players. They've both been playing for quite a while, and excellent round-robin record this week. Of course, both on Kethis. What do you know about these players and their history, Cedric?
Well, I've run across and actually played against these players both online and real life. Matt is someone who I've known for boy, we're almost on a decade now, which is showing my age. But I was there for the first Grand Prix that he won in Oakland that weekend when he won with Combo Elves. And Elves is a deck that Matt is known for, but Combo is the more important of those two words because he's been playing Combo essentially his entire career. He's one of the reasons that Ironworks is banned from Modern, given his success with that. And I don't think we're going to see Kethis get banned here because this format's turning over with Throne of Eldraine on the horizon, but this is far and away the best deck. This is so in Matt's wheelhouse. It's kind of scary to think about that this is obviously the deck he'd be playing, and unsurprisingly playing it very well.
Because he's known as a combo player more so than Li Tien is, right?
Yes.
I actually watched his Twitch stream where he tried this deck for the very first time.
Oh, yeah,
and I don't think he had much knowledge, maybe read a little bit. And he just hopped right in with ease. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do this. I guess I'm supposed to mill myself with this deck, so let me go ahead and do that. Oh, look. I get it on my first try. It was very totally impressive to watch that sort of mastery over the format.
Yeah, where I tried it for the very first time, I'm just like, do I mill me or my opponent or both? I don't know. It turns out it's both, but yeah.
He's got this thing all figured out. This is like riding a bike for him. It's going to be interesting because his build is different than the other two builds. Yeah. Everyone's build is a little bit different once we get into maybe the deeper aspects of what this day is going to look like, but this is certainly his wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah, two great players, but when someone's known for combo, it's a little bit intimidating to have to go up against them first in today's MPL Weekly. So we'll see what happens there. But we do have a piece about Nass. We're going to see Corbin walk us through what Matt Nass's round robin play went like. So let's see that now.
If anyone could do it, it would be Matt Nass. The Magic Pro Leaguer, perhaps best known for breaking crazy combo decks, you could be sure he was the first one to hop on the Kethis the Hidden Hand combo train in Standard. He was one of 5 players to sleeve it up for MPL play this week, and no one felt more comfortable piloting the combo deck. The deck aims to assemble Diligent Excavator, Mox Amber, and Kethis all on the battlefield together. It then casts a parade of historic spells to dump the library into the graveyard, which is where Kethis comes in to start recasting those spells. Eventually, enough excavators and loops of Mox Ambers allow the combo player to mill out the opponent, or mill themselves out to win with Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It's quite the innovative deck, but would it be Nass's ticket to the top 4? It didn't look that way at first. He dropped his first 2 matches. The first came to Shahar Shinhar's Mono Blue Tempo deck, and the second to reigning world champ Javier Dominguez in the Mirror. The 0-2 hole put Matt's back up against the wall early, but that was no problem. Combo players are used to coming back from the brink of defeat. And that's exactly what happened. Nass squared off against Brian Brown Doohan next, and though he dropped one game to BBD's sideboard tech of Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, he rebounded by demonstrating the power of the deck in the third game. Even missing a land drop, he was able to combo out on turn 4 thanks to a string of Mox Ambers powering out an early Tamiyo, which led to victory from there. Next up was perhaps the match of the week, coming against Ken Yukihiro in another mirror. Ken is known for bringing unique tech to the metagame, and he didn't disappoint, attacking with Traxos in the first game. Unfortunately for him, Traxos attacked only once before Nass found the combo and won the game. Game 2 was a masterpiece. Both players jockeyed for position, depleting each other's resources in graveyards at the same time. At one point, Yukihiro was even able to amass 4 different planeswalkers, all of which then immediately fell to a massive The Elder spell from Matt Nass. The huge swing put Yukihiro down to just 3 cards left in his library, and he had no graveyard. But he had one last surprise. He played Ashiok, milled himself, activated Kethis, and replayed the freshly milled Jace from his graveyard to steal the victory from the jaws of defeat. It doesn't get much better than that, but Nass was happy to return the favor in the decider, again leveraging the Elder spell, this time to ultimate a Jace immediately and draw 7 cards. He didn't win the game right then, but he took complete control and went on to win on his next turn. He then knocked off Li Tien in his 4th mirror in a row before meeting Savitz in his Vampire deck. Fortunately for Nass, that's exactly the kind of matchup the Kethis deck loves. Urza's Ruinous Blast does work here, even from the graveyard. And though Savitz was able to steal a game thanks to the power of Sorin, Nass took care of business in the third game to move to 4-2 and possibly into the top 4. That left one final match against John Rolfe, with a win putting Nass into the top 4 and a loss sending him to the tiebreaker game. Rolfe was piloting Esper Control, looking to use hand disruption and removal spells to stop the combo from coming together. But neither of those things work against the static abilities of Tamiyo and Teferi, and once Nass was able to get both in play, he had taken down game 1. Rolf fought back in Game 2 using his hate cards to great effect, with Ixalan's Binding solving the Teferi problem forever, and Unmoored Ego choking off Nass's options even more. Once Big Teferi landed, it was on to a third and final game. With his ticket to the top 4 on the line, Nass had the perfect game ready. He fought through a thought erasure to land Teferia and Tamio, and even a massive Command the Dreadhorde for Rolf wasn't enough. Nass the Combo Master found Kethis and comboed off for the win, sealing his spot as the top seed heading into top 4 play.
I chose to play Kethis in the round robin because I just kind of feel like it's the best deck. It just seems like the most powerful. It's been doing really well. It did really well at the Arena Mythic Qualifier, and it's also a combo deck, which is the type of deck that I generally like to play, so it felt like a pretty perfect fit. One thing that made me really like Kethis is that I'd actually already had a lot of experience playing with Deshara combo, which I didn't quite think was good enough, but it has a lot of similar elements. In fact, a huge percentage of the cards are the same, so that made it pretty easy to transition from that to this. I think I am going to play Kethis again in the top 4. I'll probably change my list a little bit, but I think it is just the best deck, and I don't, even though there's a good chance Lee and the other competitors will be expecting it, I think it's still probably a good choice. I'm really excited, and I don't know, this is exactly the type of deck that I feel comfortable playing, so even though, and Lee plays a lot of combo too, so I think it'll be a tough, close match, and given that it was such a combo metagame, I'm not surprised to see Lee at the top of it.
All right, there we saw Matt with some compliments for his opponent going into this next match, which was very thoughtful. But I gotta put my money on Matt going straight to the grand finals today because, I mean, this is his specialty. This is what he does best, right, Cedric?
It is his specialty. Lee also does enjoy a combo deck or two. I do think of Matt as more of a combo player than I do think of Lee. Lee's range, I think, is a little bit wider, whereas Matt's range is various different types of combo decks. He'll try literally any one of them. He was at Grand Prix Las Vegas. I think he was playing the Twitter Storm combo deck in Modern, which he admittedly is like, I don't think it's very good, but it's what I want to play. So when a good combo deck does show up, Matt's going to do really well, and I think we can all agree, and even you watching at home, that this combo deck is the best deck to be playing right now. So it's hard to pick against him, given that he's already at the top and only needs to win 1 to go to the grand finals.
Absolutely. But Lee is a player that is known for basing his deck choices off of what is currently in the metagame, which is a great skill to be flexible, and so Matt's in his wheelhouse, but Lee kind of has every wheelhouse because he's willing to adapt and pivot, so that's pretty interesting as well. We do have a piece from Megan talking about how Lee got to this place and what all of his round robin play was like, so let's see that.
Hey friends, Megan here, excited to tell you about Li Tian's road to the top 4 of the Sapphire division. Like the majority of the Sapphire division, Lee piloted Kethis Combo, the newest development in a standard format that's evolved more times than a Simic experiment. Lee began the week with a win against Brian Brown-Duin in the first of many mirror matches. Lee took Game 1, milling his opponent out on turn 5, and Brown-Duin returned the favor in Game 2. In Game 3, Brown-Duin harnessed the power of Ashiok to exile Lee's graveyard, but Lee played it patient. After proving he could mill the entirety of his own library, Lee finally turned the power of Diligent Excavator on his opponent. He emptied Brown-Duin's library into his graveyard and took the game and the match. Despite his early mirror match win, Lee lost his next 2 rounds to Ken Yukihiro and Matt Nass, both piloting Kethis Combo. Lee was in a precarious position, as another loss could ruin his chances for a top 4 finish. Then Lee faced Shahar Shenhar, who brought outlier Mono Blue tempo. At first, Mono Blue looked as good as it ever did, with Curious Obsession drawing cards and Siren Storm Tamers and Spell Pierces protecting threats. The first game went to Shenhar, the second to Lee. Lee won Game 3 by razor-thin margins, facing down lethal damage from Shenhar's attackers multiple times, and always finding just enough removal of Vraska, a Teferi, and Oath of Kaya to survive, until finally Shenhar was out of threats. Lee won by attacking with Kethis, who, it turns out, does have a power and toughness. It was against John Rolfe, piloting Esper Control, that Lee's deck really had a chance to shine. Rolfe did his best to foil Lee's plans, wrathing away his creatures and exiling all copies of Kethis with Unmoored Ego in both games. Tamiyo and Teshar, Ancestors Apostle, generated so much card advantage that Rolfe's disruption and removal couldn't fight through it. Diligent Excavator gets to the bottom of the deck once again. Next up was Lee's match against Savich, playing Vampires, an aggressive deck still a favorite in the Standard world. The match went to a Game 3, wherein Urza's Ruinous Blast ruined Savich's Vampires, as well as his hopes of winning. Finally, Lee faced recent world champion Javier Dominguez in another mirror. For those of you counting at home, that's the third world champion in this division, and Lee dispatched him even more quickly than the first two, because practice makes perfect. In a particularly brutal moment of Game 2, Lee used an Elder Spell to kill both of Dominguez's Planeswalkers. It was a setback Dominguez couldn't recover from, and with that win, Lee, one of only 2 players with a 5-2 record, secured his spot in this week's top 4.
All right, so that's the recap of Lee's round robin play. Ailey, what do you think is the most important card that we're going to see in these mirrors, these Kethis mirrors?
I think it's definitely going to be Ashiok, because this graveyard, or the deck, is all about graveyard, right? It wants to create an entire hand out of it, and if one doesn't exist, then yeah, you just kind of have to rely on your creature's power and toughness to to get the job done for you, because you can't assemble a combo if there's no graveyard to be digging through. So I think Ashiok's going to play a pretty big role.
Absolutely right. Kethis allows you to cast cards out of your graveyard, so with no graveyard in sight, that becomes rather difficult. We do have a quote from Tien. And Lee said, "We're both combo players. Knowing how to navigate decks like this, spotting the way to win as fast as possible, or stopping your opponent from winning is a lot of fun." All right, so he definitely enjoys playing the combo deck, which I think you really have to enjoy it, right, Cedric?
I mean, it's just a different kind of Magic entirely. There's
Yes.
your aggressive slants where you're just playing creatures and attacking.
If you're
Trying-
Cedric.
Yeah, if you're trying to kill your opponent, like
Or
what I
me.
like to do. There are players that enjoy playing control decks. There's players like Brad, who again will be with us a little bit later today, who likes playing mid-rangey decks that are defensive or offensive, depending on where the metagame is lined up. But combo is an entirely different animal. We mentioned how Eshak can kind of control the graveyards, and that's 100% true. But there are also times where the deck says, you know, I can actually just kind of get some value from my planeswalkers and get the job done that way. So we saw some players who didn't have success in the Sapphire round robin because they were trying to attack this combo deck one way, and turns out it just didn't work out for them. But though I do agree with you on the whole, I think Ashok's going to be playing a major, major role in things.
Yeah,
today.
the's several copies in each player's deck, even Brian Brown doing, so that's going to be interesting to see what Ashiok can pull off for these players as they try to get their combos going.
Yeah.
These players definitely agree with you.
And
for
what's
sure.
interesting is that the reason that a combo deck like this often comes about later in this time of the year when there are 8 sets in the format, it becomes easier to find these complicated combos.
Yeah.
Whereas when this new set comes with Throne of Eldraine in just next month, this is going to definitely, there's a limited amount of time in which we can see a combo deck like this go off. But just to go over, if players maybe, or viewers at home, haven't played this deck or seen this deck in action, right now we can take a look at Matt Nass's deck, and these two will walk you through exactly how this combo goes off.
It's a delightful combo, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Kethis getting things kind of started here with that text of legendary spells costing 1 less, and then you can exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard to be able to cast legendary spells in your graveyard as well. So those planeswalkers, those of course they count. Thibblethip counts, Oath of Kaya counts, and Mox Amber does count. So this is a deck that we've never really seen before, because if you think about Magic, you think of the 4 of rule, and I don't know if I want to play that many planeswalkers because drawing a redundant copy isn't so good. In this deck, it is absolutely great. Diligent Excavator is what ties the room together. Same thing can be said there for Lazav and Mox Amber. And part of the reason we probably won't see this deck once Throne of Eldraine comes in is because some cards are going to rotate.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get this deck online, there's a lot of different ways you can go. But ultimately, it is milling yourself, building up a huge graveyard, Ailey, and then casting the stuff from your graveyard once Kethis is on the battlefield.
Exactly right. And then taking a look at the sideboard here, any key cards to keep a lookout for? I spy an Unmoored Ego there that likes
There's
to
my
name
boy
Kethis.
Jace.
Yeah, Unmoored Ego, Jace. You've got the Elder Spell. We saw Matt Nash use that to great effect, blowing up multiple planeswalkers and putting loyalty counters on his. And we can't forget about Ashiok, that he's got one hanging out in the sideboard, a couple copies in the main deck as well. Some players have taken some extremes. We'll get to that later today with regards to Ashiok and how many they're playing in their main deck. It is definitely going to be a key card on the day. And it'll be interesting to watch these games unfold, because is it going to be comboing? Or is it going to be valuing with planeswalkers like we saw so much in Vegas earlier this year?
And I don't know if we've mentioned explicitly that the ultimate win condition is typically to mill your opponent after you've milled yourself to get all your pieces.
Yes, you can go about it doing that way. You can loop Oath of Kai's and just hitting him for 3 a bunch. Most of the time it is going to be mill, but you see the Ashioks here in the main deck here for Lee. He's got 2 copies there. He's got the Tashar, where Matt doesn't have that. And then most of the other stuff is just going to be 4-ofs, right? Tameo, Teferi, Kethis, Diligent Excavator, Fibblethip, so on and so forth. But he's got a card there, Ailey, in Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, which we don't see really anybody else's deck.
It's in another sideboard, but this in the main deck and could be quite pivotal, because obviously it kills anything and then brings something back from the graveyard. So
from any graveyard.
Yeah, from any graveyard. So
really,
it's kind of like a budget Commander Dread Horde, just maybe not as good. I don't know. I'm not sure between the two. It's like, which one? But yeah.
They're both good. They're both very, very powerful black sorceries, and they're going to play a role in things, especially Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. There's a reason that Lee has it in his main deck here, so we'll see if it comes up in these games that I think we're about to watch.
Yeah. Would you say Lee's known for tweaking a popular deck? Or maybe it's an interesting to have Tashar in the main, because a lot of people have Tashar in the sideboard.
I think the original deck lists included a Teshar, at least in the sideboards, but a lot of people don't play it now. So I guess it just depends, how hard they're metagaming against what they expect their other players to bring. So
I mean, Lee is willing to mix it up.
Yeah.
He'll try some cards and try some builds that look a little bit unorthodox on paper, and then eventually end up becoming kind of the stock build of the deck.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. We'll see how those choices pay off. We do have our first match of the day ready for you now.
Alrighty, kicking things off here, taking a look at the opening hand. Not the greatest, just the Scryland and Temple of Silence, so we're going to mull that away. 3 lands, that looks a lot better. Got 2 Fibblethip, got Lazav, and Kethis in hand. You want to see your Kethis. If you don't find your Kethis early, you're in a bit of a pickle, so this looks like a good keep. And let's send back Lazav the Multifarious. We won't need you right now, or, is it? Yes, alright. Off you go, Lazav, back to the bottom of the library, and let's kick things off with a Temple of Milady. We're going to scry. Hey, look, almost combo online, Cedric.
Yeah, Diligent Excavator being on the top there, it's almost an insta-keep on the scry. Looking for some Mox Ambers now, I imagine, is what Matt is looking for. Temple of Silence there for Lee will allow him to do a little scrying as well. These Temples are a huge addition to this deck. They're not seeing a ton of play in many other decks right now, but this is just another reason why this deck is so good in the format. And one thing, Ailey, that Matt is able to do in this matchup that you might not be able to do in others, like if you're playing in some mono red, is just playing Excavator on turn 2, because you know that it's very unlikely to die.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, this card has been excellent in this deck. It is unfortunate that it's rotating out soon, so, we gotta love this Kethis combo while it's around. But here we see Lazav the Multifarious from Tien, getting rid of some stuff into the graveyard, and 3 Fibblethips. Fibblethip is not lost right now. There's 3 of them in Matt Nass's hands, so we're gonna get going here. Kethis enters the battlefield, mills 2 cards off the Diligent Excavator, and we're getting real close to finding something spicy, especially with 3 extra cards coming from Fibblethip.
Yeah, Fibblethip's being in hand is actually pretty nice here. And again, we're looking at a very different kind of matchup where you might have to think about, okay, am I supposed to actually play this now? Am I supposed to wait until I'm more set up? No, you play your Excavator, you play your Kethis, and you say you need to be able to beat and kill these cards. That means you need to have Oath of Kai, because you're really not playing any removal in the main deck. Teferi can come down here if you're Lee, and you can bounce one of these permanents, sure, but this is a situation where you just, I'm going to play Piece A, I'm going to play Piece B, I'm going to play Legends after this and start milling myself, and you need to keep up with me, which is why Ashiok is so important in these games, even though it has not shown up yet here for Lee. I suppose he does have one in hand, but it doesn't look like he's going to cast one.
Yeah, no Ashiok just yet. Instead, opting to play Teferi. Teferi, the bouncer of things and bringer of cards. What's he going for? Ooh, found the Mox Amber. So sending back Kethis, drawing the Mox Amber, and just slowing down Matt Nass's combo train a little bit there. So Fibblethip's not going to be played for just 1 blue. So again, we're going to be casting Kethis the Hidden Hand, because pesky Teferi bounced him back. Milling away Lazav the Multifarious and an Oath of Kaya. How important do you think Oath of Kaya is in this matchup?
It can be okay in some instances because it does kill the excavator. It's not the biggest deal in the matchup, though. There are very small corner cases where it can actually be good. In some other matchups, it's your way of being able to take care of aggressive strategies like vampires in mono red. That's the reason they're playing so many copies and being able to recast them from the graveyard once Kethis kind of worked itself into the equation. So good card, not ideal for the matchup. Will almost certainly get sideboarded out when we get to that point of things, I think, for both players.
All right. So now we see 2 Kethis, the Hidden Hands, on the battlefield. Now it's going to be a case of who gets to combo off first. We have a Mox Amber in play, but we don't have any Diligent Excavators from Lee's side. But we do have an Ashiok Dream Render who likes to go munching through graveyards. So going to target himself, mill 4 cards, and send Matt Nass's graveyard that he's been accumulating there into exile.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's pretty exciting about Ashiok in this matchup is you're able to mill either player 4 cards, but no matter what happens when you activate the ability, you exile your opponent's graveyard. So now Lee is saying, I'm going to build up a little bit of a graveyard for myself and exile yours. Matt has his own Ashiok, so now he might have to consider maybe doing that too, which is I play mine and exile your graveyard. And now we're starting to work ourselves into a really weird game of exiling graveyards, and is the window open to actually be able to do anything here. One note here for Lee is that he does have a Mox Amber, so he's found one of those, doesn't have 2 or any of the nonsense online just yet, but it's a good start here for Lee, who felt like he may have been a little bit behind at the jump.
All right, now interesting here. Matt is deciding to go after Lee. He's saying, hey, I'm done milling myself because you got Ashiok on the board, so I'm going to attempt to mill you out, dear friend. So we're going to see a few Fibblethip's doing some work, and we're going to see Matt Nass's own Ashiok again milling Tien.
Yeah, I like this plan here by Matt because he can't really do much with regards to going off on his own. So what he's saying is I'm going to play a Fibblethip, mill you with the Excavator, play Ashiok, mill you with the Excavator, and now I'm going to mill you again with the Ashiok, and I'll exile your graveyard. So now both graveyards are contained.
Yeah.
Is a graveyard a resource in this game? It still can be, but for right now, both graveyards are empty, and now we're going to head back to Lee and see what he's up to on his 5th turn of the game.
So Lee does have 2 Tameo Collector of Tales in hand, which is great for, finding something out of the deck and bending the others, but it's not going to be fishing anything back, especially if both Ashioks go unanswered. Both players need to figure out how to work around the opposing Ashiok. They will die eventually if you activate them, several times if they can be. But yeah, for the most part, it's what do you do in this situation? Because neither player has a graveyard to work with.
It's not really a graveyard game anymore. Now, you do have the ability to mill yourself some, and maybe you find some things in your graveyard with Kethis to be able to recast if you get maybe the perfect kind of mill. Diligent Excavator coming down here for Lee is actually pretty nice, along with Tameo now too. So now we kind of do this weird balance where we shift from a Kethis combo game to a let's generate an advantage with Planeswalker game, but I still have the ability with Tameo and with Ashiok to mill myself, maybe find the perfect mills, and be able to go off all in the same turn. So Ashiok is what I would consider to be a temporary solution if you're not able to pressure your opponent, which right now, Matt's Kethis is running into a Kethis, Fibblethip will run into who knows what because it's just a 1/1. Excavator doesn't attack pretty well. So both the creatures on the battlefield, or all the creatures, pardon me, they're just going to kind of stare at each other. And these Planeswalkers are going to continue to be able to generate an advantage.
So neither player has Jace, Wielder of Mysteries in their main deck, is that correct? So it's going to be a case of whoever can mill the other quicker. That's the win condition, considering all the creatures are just sitting there staring at each other and not getting any advantage.
One thing that's interesting now is that Tameo has returned to Mox Amber, which means the deck now has 2 Mox Ambers going here for Lee, which is part of the combo, as it were, with his particular strategy, with Kethis being on the battlefield. So
Ooh, finding a 3rd in the battlefield.
It looks like potentially Lee is going off now because he's starting to loop Moxes, and that is a step in the right direction. Now Teferi being played, Excavator is going to mill a couple of more cards here. So remember, when this turn started, Lee had no graveyard.
Yeah.
Now Lee has one heck of a graveyard, and he's really getting rolling here.
Oh yeah, so we're going to see Kethis going off pretty quickly. Teferi, bouncer of things and bring up cards, sends back the Mox Amber to hand and lets him recast it, milling himself for 2 more cards. So now, as you said, the graveyard is getting nice and full, and Kethis is going to get something to do very, very shortly.
It's a deck that can kind of go off from a low base because once you have Ashiok on the battlefield, once you have Tameo on the battlefield, it's not hard to mill yourself. You need to find the right mills, of course, but because Kethis is making everything so cheap, it's really not that tough to fill up your graveyard again and say, hey, I started the turn with no graveyard. I'm going to end the turn with all of your cards in your graveyard.
Exactly right. So you can see now, just taking a look at that graveyard, it's getting real full. And Lee, if he draws well, if he keeps milling the correct cards into the graveyard, I think he's pretty much locked in for a win here. He's just got to not hit any blanks in the top of his library. So yeah, the Diligent Excavator doing what it does, getting rid of those cards off the top of the library. It is now super full. I think we have 3 Mox Ambers in rotation.
Yeah, I think there's at least 2 down there, so I think we might be able to
there you go, there's
we
another
might be
one.
able to rock a full loop at this point. And what's interesting here is, again, now it's on Lee to win this turn. And the reason I say that is it looks like Matt is going to concede. He knows he's beat because he knows the combo deck so well, is that if Lee passes the turn back, then Matt can just say, Alex, out your graveyard.
Yes.
But Matt's not going to get another turn. That's why he conceded. And there you go. So now we take a look at the sideboards.
Taking a look at the sideboards, we're kicking out poor Fibblethip. Oh, little guy. Yawgmoth's Val offering 2 Teferis, Lazav, Tamio, and an Oath of Kaya, and bringing in Jace, Legion's End. We've got Elder Spell, Tyrant's Scorn, Ashiok, I want to call it butt trophy, but that's not allowed. Trophy.
Assassin's Trophy, yes.
And Braska, I'm so used to calling it wrong names. Yeah, so that's what Tien has brought into the match. And then taking a look at Matt Nass's sideboarding, all of the Oath of Kaya is going bye-bye, so he's not going to be smacking anything. Lazav out and a land. In place of, he knows that there's an Assassin's Trophy. So that's Swamp coming in.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting sideboarding here from Matt. You see how they differ a little bit. So Matt's got this Swamp that he's bringing in, sideboarding out of Drawn Catacombs because Assassin's Trophy is going to be cast and players aren't playing any basics. So being able to get a little value from an Assassin's Trophy resolving is pretty nice because it will, in theory, accelerate you a little bit, assuming the Swamp is still in your deck. But Lee, who has 3 main deck copies of Oath of Kaya, Matt has 4. Matt's sideboarding all of his out. Lee is actually electing to leave in 2 copies of Oath of Kaya. So there's a little bit of a difference in sideboarding philosophy here for these players. But what we can note is that both players are sideboarding more interaction.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be what we saw in game number 1 where it's, oh, okay, we're both kind of goldfishing, we're both kind of getting our combo online, and then one person's going to rock and roll and do their thing. We're going to see, I imagine, more permanents get blown up in the second and potentially third game.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So Matt Nass kicking things off. He's got 2 Diligent Excavators in hand, as well as Fibblethip and Kethis. So this looks like a pretty great hand to start things off with. He's going to fire off that Shockland Diligent Excavator online, and we're going to see some Millens starting very, very soon.
Yeah, the one thing that Matt is missing this game is much like the last game. He's missing Mox Amber right now, where Lee had it last game, and you saw just how degenerate things can get once you have Kethis, a Diligent Excavator, pardon me, not the farmhand from Odyssey. That's a much older card. I'm dating myself.
I thought you said farter. I was like, sorry, what?
No, not quite. Diligent Farmhand is a green common from Odyssey. I've been playing this game far too long.
All right, so let's keep things going here. We've got another Diligent Excavator. So what's the play here? Is it better to start milling, draw a card, or get the other Excavator down for potentially 4 cards in the graveyard?
Well, I'm no Matt Nass, and this is interesting to me because I think Matt's probably thinking this turn through a little bit about what he does want to do. Attacking is the easy part, so let's get the easy part out of the way. But I can certainly see an argument of just saying, you know what, let's get the Excavator on the battlefield, so that means that when I do play any sort of historic spell or legendary spell, okay, we're going to start milling 4 cards and really starting to build the graveyard.
Yeah.
But once you do this, you do open yourself up to having one of them killed, depending on what Lee is up to with his sideboarding. So I don't mind this play. I'm also certainly going to defer to the person who's in the MPL as opposed to the person that's watching the MPL play. So if Matt wants to play an Excavator, by all means, Matt, deploy that Excavator.
Hey, Cedric, you're a really good player. Just saying.
I'm no Matt Nass, especially.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not known for playing a combo deck. So
no, you like to turn dude sideways and go face.
Yeah, so the attack with the Excavator, that part's easy. Let's do that.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's kind of funny because I don't see, when I'm watching these mirror matches, you don't see the players ever attack, even if they have the board open. Like, sure, they can, you know, like their instincts say attack, but for the most part, it's not about the life total. It's about the graveyard and the library size. You know, that's the resource you're attacking.
Now, that was a very interesting draw there from Matt because Mox Amber was basically the piece to the puzzle that he was missing.
Yeah.
He's got one, and of course works better in multiples once Kethis is involved, but for now he's going to play one and mill 2, and it was 2 legendary permanents that go to the graveyard.
He's also got Kethis and another Fibblethip in hand to get some extra millage going. He'd hate to see the other Diligent Excavator die, but, you know, Oath of Kaya is a factor in this matchup, so you expect at least one of them to bite the dust. But Kethis now enters the battlefield and makes little Fibblethip just a little bit cheaper. I like this card. He's so cute.
Yeah, I imagine that Philip is going to join the fray here, but Matt's taking a look at his graveyard to see if there's any reason to use Kethis this turn.
Yeah, because he could replay Ashiok from the graveyard if he so chooses, so I'm guessing that's what he's going for. Just to get some extra millage going, why not? Vraska and Tamia. Wow, was that double Planeswalker talkage?
This is actually pretty nice if you're Matt, because you get to deploy this.
Yeah.
You don't have a graveyard to exile from your opponent, but you do get to mill your graveyard. You found another Mox, and now all of a sudden,
Yeah, this is looking good for Matt. He's assembling his combo. Does he have 2 permanent or 2 legendaries to exile? I don't think so just yet.
Okay. Matt going to give some beatdowns here and just
Yeah.
pass the turn back. So if I'm Lee, my thought process right now is I'm probably dead next turn. I need
Yeah.
to interact with this battlefield in some way. I need to either kill Kethis, kill the farmhand, something. Vraska's going to do a nice job.
Yeah,
of that.
Vraska's going to get rid of Kethis. Sorry, buddy, you are joining your friends in the graveyard pretty soon. Just see Matt taking a look there at the graveyard, seeing what Kethis is joining. He's hoping to find another one pretty soon. Finds a Mox Amber, that's good. We always like to find more Moxes. Ashiok, what can you find for us, friend?
Yeah, what's so interesting about this deck is you're playing the cards that are in your hand, but you're also playing your graveyard too. You need to know
Yeah.
what's in your graveyard every step of the way, not only because of if I draw a Kethis, what can I do with it, but also what do I have left in my deck. You know, players are going to be milling themselves, players are going to be milling each other, as we have seen take place over the course of the first game and a half here. So you have to have an idea of what's going on, because now Matt has shifted. He said, I'm going to mill you, Lee, once Fiddlethip resolves with the Excavator. Probably going to mill him with the Ashiok as well. So this is a little bit interesting here from Matt on what he's supposed to do. But the Fiddlethip drew a Tameo.
Yeah,
and
Tameo
now
can
Tameo
fish.
changes the equation.
Yeah, Tameo is great at that, like I said earlier, finding cards in the library or bringing something back. So that Kethis that's hiding out in the graveyard there can come back to hand and make an appearance next turn.
So look at the shift in what happened there.
Yeah.
So when Fiddlethip was cast, Matt milled Lee. And then Fiddlethip drew a card, and it drew Tameo, so then Matt played Tameo, and Matt said, okay, I'm going to mill me. So it shifted based off of just one card being drawn, and now the Ashiok that may have wanted to target Lee, Matt says, actually, I'm going to target me, put more cards into my graveyard, exile your graveyard, and now Tameo might be getting back Kethis, which I think it already has,
Yep.
and now you just pass the turn that way. So things change so fast in this matchup.
And that just shows you how good these players are at commanding this deck, because any normal player would just be like, okay, I'm going to mill myself a few turns and then go back. But you know, it's always in flux. It's never clear as to who you should be milling and when. But these players, I think they've got it down to a T almost.
You saw the Excavator finish off the Vraska, and that was just Matt's turn. So Matt's got, I think, a lot of advantages here. Lee has more cards in hand from a density standpoint, but does he have the cards that matter to actually get going? I don't think so at this stage of things. Matt has an Excavator, Matt has a Kethis, Max has he has a Mox Amber on the battlefield, and he has a Mox Amber in hand and active Planeswalkers, where Lee is trying to get the shop set up here. Matt Nass has already got that pretty much built at this stage of things. So,
Well, with Kethis on the battlefield, he is able to run out Vraska for 1 mana less. Excellent little card in it. And killing off, again, that poor creature. Bye-bye, Diligent Excavator. No more digging for you. No milling. Tameo is going to plus, and we're going to name Diligent Excavator because I kind of need that. So, Lee, please stop killing my things.
yeah, Tameo plays such a crucial role in this deck. Looks like Matt's going to miss with the Tameo activation, mill himself with Ashiok, exile Lee's graveyard. If Matt was able to find an Excavator, probably would have won on the spot. Right now, he's missing that piece to the
Yeah.
puzzle. Vraska slowing him down just a little bit right now. So I'm curious to see if Matt wants to deploy Kethis. It looks like he does, and he's got a pretty decent amount of mana to work with.
Yeah, indeed. So Kethis back on the battlefield. Another Mox Amber, Legend ruling itself. So that's in the graveyard now too. He has the ability to play another Tameo if he so wishes, but I think we're just going to go exiling the spare Kethises. Kethi, I don't know what you want to call him. Kethis, the Hidden Hands, are now into exile, allowing him to access his graveyard yet again. He does have 2 Mox Ambers, or 3 Mox Ambers actually in place, so he could be well on his way to a victory here if his deck behaves.
Going to deploy a new copy of Tameo, going to return something from the graveyard. I have to imagine it's an Excavator. Should have the ability to deploy an Excavator, given the access to the Moxes. So I wouldn't be surprised here if this leads to a combo finish, because there's another Mox to deploy. Now we're going to start chaining and looping Moxes because you're going to start milling yourself.
Yeah.
If you're Matt, maybe you need a little bit of help with the milling, but the ability to loop all these Moxes and activate Kethis means that I have a feeling that this game is going to end here.
All right, well, let's see. Knowing these players, they're not going to concede early to a potential combo going off. There's a lot to play for here. Of course, they want to get into day 2 of Mythic Championship 5, so we're going to play this out. Lee's going to wait and see. Maybe Matt makes a mistake. I mean, what could go wrong in this situation for Matt?
I mean, Matt could make a mistake. Yes, that's entirely possible. Matt's deck could also just not cooperate as well with the milling with Diligent Excavator, because he only has 1. If he had 2, I think it'd be a foregone conclusion, but he only does have 1 at this stage of things. But we could see a Teferi come down, bouncing a Mox Amber and keeping things going that way. Of course, when you cast a Teferi, you're going to mill 2 more cards because of the Excavator's clause. So, I'm pretty sure that this is going to get the job done here for Matt as he bounces, the Mox Amber, and he's going to replay it and of course mill 2 more cards with the Excavator, targeting himself.
He does have Jace in hand, so once he's feeling comfortable, he can just drop it down and then plus Jace, draw the last card in his deck, and then happy days, you win by milling yourself. Isn't that fun?
And the nice thing too is when you're deploying Legends, and deploying Planeswalkers like Matt is here, he's going to cast another Teferi. He's going to mill himself 2 more cards. It was only 2 lands, but when he does this, he keeps the new Teferi. He loses the old Teferi, which means that's another legendary card in the graveyard for Kethis. So now he boxes. He bounces the Mox again. He's going to replay the Mox, mill himself again, picked up a copy of Fibblethip. That means the Fibblethip that's on the battlefield is going to go to the graveyard, which puts another legend into the graveyard. So you can see how once this deck actually gets rolling, Ailey, it's really hard to stop the snowball from growing.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in these decks that, like, there's no counter spells or anything like that that can interrupt the combo once it's going off. And, you know, Lee's tapped out as well, so he's just kind of sitting there watching Matt play by himself. Yeah. It's almost like a Nexus deck, but not.
And this is another example of where I think Ashiok is good in the matchup, but it varies from being good to great from stopping your opponent. But one thing that it does a great job of is that it gets you rolling.
Yeah.
Again, remember this turn, he missed with Tamiyo, naming Diligent Excavator, which feels like an hour ago. He milled himself with Ashiok, and now he found the necessary things by being able to deploy another copy of Tamiyo, get back the Excavator, recast the Excavator, build this battlefield, and now the Moxes are starting to chain off, and I think it's only going to be a matter of time. The question now is, you know, is Lee going to sit through this? And that question was just answered for us.
No, Lee is not. He is not that patient, and rightly so. Going to sideboarding, sending out Jace, bringing in Legions, and my apologies, and bringing in Tamiyo and another Assassin's Trophy. So let's see if those can get the job done for Lee. I wonder what Matt Nass sideboarded out.
Yeah, those changes are very, very minor there from Lee.
Yeah, it's like just 1 thing or 2. So Matt did not sideboard anything. He's quite happy with his cards and his deck make it up, and he's just going to run it back straight away.
So what's interesting about this, too, as we get ready for this 3rd game, is I know that Lee considers himself to be a combo player, but I think when you think of maybe the best combo players in the modern era of Magic, you have to think Matt Nass. And the reason I bring this up is Lee making a slight adjustment. Maybe he's making adjustments because of being on the play as opposed to the draw, but maybe he's making an adjustment because he's a little bit uncomfortable playing the mirror, whereas Matt, he already knows what he wants to do. Yeah. No need to go to the drawing board. Click, submit, let's play game 3. This time he's on the draw. Curious to see if he's going to keep this hand, because it is a little bit slow off the jump.
Yeah, no 2-drops, unfortunately. No Fibblethips to bring your cards, no Diligent Excavator, no Mox Amber either. So he's missing 2 crucial parts of the deck makeup. It does draw a Lazev the Multifarious, which can be useful. Now, I know what Lazev does, Cedric, but you explain things a lot better. So why is Lazev in this list?
Well, it's something new for 2 mana to get you kind of started. You know, the Surveil can put a card into the graveyard. It can also, you can pay the mana and actually transform it into something that does matter that's already in the graveyard as well. You know, you toss in the fact that it's a legend for Mox Amber, and it's a legend that, of course, will be able to be removed to Kethis and turn on the Excavator a little bit there. So it does a lot. It's a card that I know that when it was previewed a handful of months ago, and almost a year ago now, players were really excited about the possibilities with this card. Never really came to fruition, but this is probably the perfect deck for it. So a good draw step there from Matt, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So Lee has gotten his Ashiok down and is starting to get rid of that graveyard of Matt Nass, so he's going to want to deal with that pretty soon. Just running out the Hallowed Fountain. Kethis now on the battlefield. And we're going to go after that Ashiok because I would kind of like my graveyard, please. Yeah,
so this is the little sub-game we're going to play now, which is, okay, Ashiok's on the battlefield. This is a little bit annoying. I have to take care of this if I'm Matt. If I'm Lee, what I can say is, hey, I'm going to start milling myself a little bit. Let's see if I can build up some sort of graveyard that matters. Lee does not have an Excavator just yet.
Not yet.
He does have a Kethis, which is a nice little 3/4, but I think Matt has the perfect answer in hand in Vraska.
Yeah. Vraska is great at getting rid of 3 CMC pesky critters. So we're going to see that run out right now and deal with these pesky threats on the other side of the battlefield.
This is actually quite nice here for Matt. He's able to use the minus ability to take care of the Kethis, should be able to kill the Ashiok, and then he's a little bit ahead in this game because he has an active Planeswalker. So that's not bad. And even, hey, let's get that point of damage in with the Lazev over.
Yeah, sure, why not? We do have a second copy of Ashiok Dreamrender in Lee's hands, so pretty useful. We also have drawn the Legion's End, which will get rid of Lazev, but unfortunately no spare copies in hand there for Lee to target.
Lee's a little gummed up right now. Doesn't have land
Yeah.
number 4 for either copy of Tamio. Fibblethip is nice because it draws a card, but it doesn't really do much. And actually, there's no blue mana, so it can't be cast. So all he can do at this stage of things is just pass the turn back, which if you're Matt, you gotta be
Oh yeah,
thrilled with that.
Matt must be like super stoked to see no threats coming down. So he's just gonna keep pecking away here. Hey, we might see a game won by getting your opponent's life total to 0, Cedric.
It's actually entirely possible. One thing that's nice about the Vraska in this matchup, some matchups you don't actually have some permanents to throw away, but
Ooh, nice.
Matt doesn't need a lot of lands to operate, and he's also got 2 additional lands in hand. Drawing an Excavator is really, really nice because now you are threatening Lee from multiple angles. You're saying, if you don't interact with me this turn, I'm probably gonna be able to go off.
Yeah.
You know, there's a chance that I'm able to maybe sacrifice something to Vraska, maybe mill some stuff with Excavator and be able to go off, so it's time for you to actually do something.
Yeah, we did find the blue source though, Hallowed
True.
Fountain, so maybe Fibblethip can be the hero we all need for Li Tien. Let's see what you find there, little buddy. Or are we going straight for the Ashiok to mill away that graveyard?
I think this is a really, really tough decision for Lee. It looks like he's going to go towards Fibblethip, draw a card, and then maybe play Legion's End on the Excavator, which means he's got the opportunity to play 2 spells in 1 turn. Fibblethip will also do a nice job of protecting Tamio or Ashiok. If it comes to that, we'll have to see.
Ooh, now also Matt Nass finding his own Ashiok. So there is a bit of a graveyard on Lee's side, so maybe the thought is here, let's get rid of that graveyard. I don't like it. Because we saw just how quickly the game can turn around. You know, you go from nothing in your graveyard to absolutely everything in your graveyard from game 1.
It does not take much.
No.
All it does, it can be done from a very, very, very low base. So Matt's going to mill himself for 4 cards, which means that Lee's graveyard is going to be exiled, so Lee does not have a graveyard to work with anymore. And you see Matt there just taking a look at the graveyard. Let's see what I do have to work with. Doesn't look like I can really go off just yet. But I still do, if I'm Matt, I'm thinking I have an advantage on the battlefield right now, so I'm pretty happy with that. Though he does have what I would argue is maybe too many lands. He's flooding out a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a little bit too much land there, but thankfully he does have Vraska that can destroy permanent and draw your cards. So it's also a good way just to keep that at bay. Keep the flood away, because we all know how much we love flooding, don't we?
Curious to see what okay, so he's going to sacrifice Lazav, which is a little bit interesting.
Lazav did nothing wrong. Actually,
I guess, you know, weirdly, it's like kind of
that's fine. It gets
it's like
some
kind of a
replay.
free roll to sacrifice it.
Yeah.
And this is why, man, this is why Matt is so good at playing decks like this, because now you can play a land, Tamio costs 1 less, deploy Tamio, return something or name a card, and now he's got that Planeswalker advantage in a big, big way.
Oh yeah, probably going for a Diligent Excavator here. Yeah, let's get that combo off. We'll find the Mox Ambers eventually, but we need that card just to help us, you know, funnel through our opponent's deck as quickly as we can. So very much advantage Matt Nass. He's got Super Friends assembled. He's got Kethis and just Fibblethip on the side there, on the other side of the board. It's okay, little buddy, you got this. I believe in you.
Lee's lost his graveyard. He doesn't have a ton going on in his hand. He's a little bit behind on mana. He's behind in really every way.
Yeah.
Also, his life total 14-7. It doesn't come up much, but it could come up in this particular game.
Yeah, could be a factor. Here we see the Tamio, Collector of Tales. What's she going to collect for Lee? Curious to see what he names here. He's got to find something to try and get this combo rocking. Otherwise, he's very much on the back foot here against these 3 Planeswalkers, a Kethis, and an established graveyard.
What's really tough here for Lee is, as you mentioned, what card do you name in this situation? You know, the Elder Spell is something that might be of interest right now, controlling and containing those Planeswalkers. But even if he does hit with Tamio naming the Elder Spell, it's not a spell he can cast this turn.
No.
So this is a pretty difficult decision for Lee of what to do with his powerful Planeswalker right now. Because if whatever he does with it, some cards are going to go into the graveyard, and then those are going to go bye-bye because of the Ashiok.
Yeah.
So you got to, in a weird way, make it count. He's going to go with Kethis.
Okay, let's see. Does he find it? Does not.
Doesn't look like it.
4 cards into the graveyard. Ashiok is going to be snacking on those next turn. Feels bad when you miss with the Tamio. Although if your intention is to mill, then you know you just name like Drakuseth or something.
Yeah, I mean the
There's
kind of
uses
crazy
for it.
thing about Tamio is you miss and then you get something back later,
Yep.
or you just go again because 4 cards is so many. But in this instance, when you have an Ashiok breathing down your neck, missing here is very, very painful because that means
Yeah.
you're losing resources forever.
Yeah.
So that part makes it tough.
It just looks like Matt has everything going for him right now. He's got a spare Ashiok. He's probably considering firing off again. You know, let's hurry this up a little bit. He's considering it. He's like, yeah, I don't need that Ashiok. It's another legendary for the graveyard, something else that Kethis can exile or possibly replay again if he just wants to keep, you know, wheeling Ashioks. Granted, he doesn't have the Mox Ambers to go completely nuts like that, but let's see what he does here.
Well, this is what kind of gets interesting, too, about this game for Matt, because Matt, I think, is in a pretty advantageous position. I think he'd tell you that if he was, you know, on Skype right now with us.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like I'm pretty far ahead, but I want to make sure that I stay far ahead, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to get blown out by an Ashiok coming down and exiling my graveyard, as an example. So if I can actually kind of get this game over with this turn or build some sort of very large, insurmountable advantage, I think Matt wants to try to do that. He's going to do a little something here with Tamio. I wouldn't be surprised to see the name be Diligent Excavator again.
So this is very much a case of how do I lose this now? So that's all he has to worry about. It's like, I am very much in the driver's seat. How do I lose? Let me make sure I have accounted for all of those and just, put myself in the best position to not lose.
Yeah, I mean, the way to lose here, potentially, is by having your graveyard get exiled by the Ashiok that's sitting in Lee's hand that Matt, I do not believe, knows about yet. He doesn't because he hasn't seen Lee's hand.
No.
So if you're Lee, you're thinking, I have an active Tamio, I'm pretty far behind, but I do have an Ashiok that can kill my opponent's entire graveyard if I get the opportunity. If I'm Lee, I'm just hoping I don't get another turn. Or excuse me, if I'm Lee, I'm hoping I do get another turn.
Yeah, exactly right. And we did see 2 Mox Ambers enter the bin from that mill, so that's really, really good for Matt Nass. Oh, look at that graveyard. Look how big his hand is now. His hand in inverted commas. Cool, so we're going to see some more goodies. We have 2 Mox Ambers. We still don't have Diligent Excavator, but at this point, it doesn't really feel like it matters too much.
Yeah, so it feels like there's a way for Matt to actually get Excavator now here. He's going to mill himself a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt do something along the lines of playing Tamio, getting Excavator back if there's one in his graveyard.
There is one.
And then casting it and going that way. Potentially, if he has enough mana to do all this stuff, because he does have the ability to do some looping of Mox in here. So
there are many shenanigans that Matt Nass can do, and it's just, he's almost spoiled for choice. There's like so many different lines and options you can go for, and you bet Matt Nass is going to find the most efficient one.
I mean, he's filling that graveyard.
Oh yeah, that is super duper full. But Kethis, he's got the interesting ability, or at least when Kethis is activated, it doesn't ever apply to the cards that he mills later on. So he has to activate Kethis again. So it's not just a free-for-all. It's like, oh cool, now I have all these cards to access once I've milled them. He really is spoiled for choice here. Holy moly.
Yeah, he's
he's doing pretty good for himself.
He's got a little something going here. I mean, he's casting Ashiok multiple times per turn.
Yeah, here we go. Ashiok number 3 this turn. Yes, please. All right, what you got? How close is he to decking, I wonder? I think he's still a ways away.
I think he's a ways away. I'm curious to see, what he removes doesn't really matter all that much. Multiple copies of Kethis don't matter because he's already got one on the battlefield, and it's legendary, so they don't work well in multiples, obviously. So, all right, let's turn our hand back on and get some Mox in here.
Could get some Fibblethip for some extra draw. We can just play out too. I do. He's so cute, man. Come on, who doesn't love Fibblethip? If you don't, you're a monster.
Well, I do then. I do.
Confirmed. Cedric loves Fibblethip. So we're just going to see another Ashiok Dream Render here because why not? Let's just keep milling. Do we have a Jace yet? We haven't found the Jace.
No, I don't think so. So this is actually
Maybe
kind
that's
of
what he's looking
for. I'm curious. So Matt wouldn't do this unless he had a plan. He obviously has a plan.
Yes.
I'm curious about what said plan is.
We will find out shortly, no doubt.
Obviously, I have to imagine it involves getting Excavator back onto the battlefield somehow. But he isn't working with a lot of mana. Yes, he can continue to loop Moxes, but because he's already activated his Tamio, that means in order for him to get one, he needs to play another Tamio, which that costs 3, and then playing Excavator costs 2. So that's a total of 5 mana to be able to actually make this work, and then going from there. So he's obviously up to something.
Yeah, he's up to something. I mean, there's multiple ways, as we said, there's multiple ways and lines and courses of action that he could take, but for the time being, he's just, there we go, there's Jace.
And he also found, so this might be the Mox kill.
There we go.
Or excuse me, this might be the Jace kill, which is, I'm just going to mill myself entirely. Just, I can loop Moxes, I can recast Jace from my graveyard, and then I have no cards left in my deck.
It's quicker at this rate, right? Yeah. Much quicker to mill yourself, get Jace out, and then happy days.
So then what this probably means is it doesn't involve Diligent Excavator at all.
No.
And now we're looping Moxes because I think he found his 4th one, so we can just kind of do this whole shindig.
Yep, there we go. Lee sees the writing on the wall, and Jace would have been the win condition there, but he saw it, and I'm pretty sure Matt Nass saw it too. So congratulations, Matt Nass, on to the finals. Excellent games.
He's too good at this.
I mean, Matt just got to go straight as I mean, it depends on the cards, of course, and of course, Tien won that first game very handily, but he went straight on to grand finals. Matt Nass did, so very impressive piloting of that deck right there. Yeah. I'm curious. I have a real question for you, Cedric. A lot of people expected the Get This Mirror, and it seems Vraska gets boarded in. when you're in the mirror. Why not put it in the main?
It's just an okay card in the main deck. 4 mana to be able to destroy a permanent is a little bit slow.
Okay.
So let's say if you're playing against vampires, 4 mana to destroy some 1 mana knucklehead is just way too slow. You're going to get run over at that stage of things. And I wouldn't even say it's that great in this mirror. It's fine as a source of interaction, and it's a legendary source of interaction, so that means it's cheaper with Kethis. You can remove it with Kethis. It can generate mana from Mox, all of those things. But ultimately, it's way too slow against your mono reds and your vampires of the world. So fine here, but not a main deck card.
Yeah, we did see a lot of players like metagame against each other, figuring that there would be Kethis. So, just in case someone flipped it entirely and went, I'm going to play mono red, you don't want Nebraska.
Right. Yeah, you never know when people will meta so hard they're just completely off the charts there. Well, we do have an interview with Matt Nass with Paul Tian.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Tian, joined here by the winner of the upper division semifinals. I'm here with Matt Nass. How's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Feels good to win that match. And I'm just awaiting my next challenger at this point, which is not a bad spot to be in.
Right. And not a really big surprise, right? The combo master finally, just putting together a really strong finish. Now that combo's viable in standard again.
Yeah, it feels good. Nexus was like kind of viable, but I don't think it was the best deck, and it feels good to have the combo deck possibly be the best deck in standard now.
All right, so now you're just going to be hanging out. You're waiting for your finals opponent, and there are a couple of other opponents that you might play against. You, of course, played against Tian, but you also have the opportunity to either play against Brian Brown-Duin or Ken Yukihiro. Now, is there a deck that you are kind of not looking forward to see among the 3 in the finals?
So I think Lee and Ken are kind of similar. They're both playing relatively normal lists of Kethis that are pretty close to mine. And so either mirror I'd be fine with. I've played a lot of mirrors, so we've all presumably done pretty well in them because we've gotten to this point and there's been so much Kethis in our division. But and then BBD is kind of a horse of a different color. He's playing Esper with 4 Ashiok's main deck. And my hope, and I assume he's tested this, so I'm guessing he thinks the matchup is good, but my hope is that against Esper, you can kind of play a more value-y game a lot of the time, and Ashiok kind of provides nothing to the board, right? It's not going to defend your other planeswalkers, it's not going to block, and so my hope is that playing Ashiok is actually kind of awkward for him some of the time, and some of the time, if he doesn't deal with the Excavator Kethis, I'll be able to combo through Ashiok like we saw in these games. So that's my hope. My concern is that Esper is a lot more disruptive than Kethis, and it might be a lot harder to combo through an Ashiok when they're also killing your stuff and thought erasuring you and all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah, that's a matchup that I'm really interested in seeing too, just because, presumably he knew that Kethis was the deck to beat coming into the top 4, and then he chose to still bring this version of Esper Hero to try to fight these decks.
Yeah. I'm guessing he thinks he's favored because he probably would have just opted into Kethis mirrors if he didn't. BBD's definitely a lot more comfortable with Esper. That's the deck he's played almost all season in every tournament he possibly could. So.
Yeah, I mean, he might just be the best Esper Hero player out there.
Yeah, very possible.
All right, well, congratulations on your victory. You get to just chill out, hang out, and wait to see your finals opponent. Best of luck in the finals.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, there's Matt Nass talking about his win in the upper semifinals. I think he just dreams about decks like this, Matt Nass.
Oh, this is you couldn't draw it up any better than this. We saw Matt win in a couple of unorthodox ways, and just that particular third game we were watching, where is it about Excavator, what's it about, and eventually we all kind of figured out that it's just about the Jace kill now, and he just knows when to pivot to a different way of doing things in a game, and he doesn't have to think about it. Where some players might have to take like a pause and, all right, what am I supposed to do now? Like, this game's not going the way I want it to go. Matt's like, oh, we're just going to do this. Like, what are we even talking about here? And that's why he's a member of the MPL, and that's why he's so darn good at playing combo. For me, it's like impossible to pick against him to not win this, because he was already at the top because he went 5-2 through the round robin.
Yeah.
He just won against someone who also plays combo well, and in the grand finals, someone has beat him twice. Yeah, okay. Beat him playing combo twice. Sure.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Now, in just a moment, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will have Brad Nelson joining us, and we're going to watch next match with Brian Brown-Duin and Ken Yukihiro. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.